Okay, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone here for this Trinity College London Transformative Teachers webinar. Just a quick check in the chat box, make sure everyone can hear me. Hopefully you can, a yes or something in the chat box will be appreciated. As I've already said in the chat box, it's always great to see such an international group of peers come together for these Transformative Teachers webinars. And I was just noting down some of the countries we've got here, everything from Cambodia, Poland, Vietnam, Saudi Arabia, Romania, Ukraine, Qatar, Tunisia. I think we've spread across the globe here, lots of representation in South America as well. So really great to see you all here today, some of whom I recognize coming back to these again and again. Just before I introduce our speaker, just a few things, some reminders, and for those of us that are new here, we'll be here for about 1 hour today. It's 4 o'clock in the UK, so right now, so we'll finish about 5. We will be, and we are, recording this session. So if you do happen to drop out, or you have to leave because you've got classes to get to, or marking to do, or something happens, don't worry, this will be up on the Transformative Teachers website, and I'll put the link for that in the chat box later. Speaking of the chat box, you can see that that moves quite quickly. It's always very lively here, and we've got lots of people in the room at the moment, so please do keep that going. If you have any questions for Alex, however, it will probably be better to put that in the Q&A box, which you'll find on your screen, because that doesn't move as much, and I'll be keeping track of everything to try and get your questions to Alex at the end of this. So without further ado, I will just quickly introduce Alex for those of you that don't know him, pulling up my notes here. So Alexsandro Silva has been teaching English, and he's been a teacher trainer for over 20 years now. He holds a diploma qualification in ELT, a BA in languages, that's Portuguese and English, and a BA in history. He's a coordinator at Cultura, Inglesa, Duque de Caxias in Brazil, where he is responsible for teacher training, the school's bilingual program, and the delivery of the Trinity College London DipTESOL and CertTESOL courses. You may recognize him as he participates regularly in conferences and teachers forums in Brazil and abroad. So without further ado, hello, Alex, I'll hand right over to you.
Hello, thank you. Just stop sharing here. So first, I'd like to thank Simon and the whole team at Trinity College London. Thank you for the invitation. I'd also like to thank everyone who's joined us for this afternoon. Thank you for your time. It's a pleasure to be here talking to such audience, and I hope you find this webinar useful. So this is the title, Projects and Activities for Young Learners. And just a quick, going back to what Simon mentioned in the opening, I am a coordinator at Cultura Inglesa Duque de Caxias, which is a language school in Brazil. We are a member of ABSE, which is the Brazilian Association of Culturas Inglesas. So as you can see, there are Culturas Inglesas all over Brazil, from north to south. And we are here, very close to Rio. Our school is in Duque de Caxias, which is in the metropolitan area of Rio de Janeiro. So we are about 20 kilometers from the city of Rio. And we're also a member of LABSE, which is the Association of Latin America British Cultural Institutes. So many of you who are from Uruguay, Argentina, Chile, Paraguay, so there are Culturas Inglesas and British cultural institutes all over Latin America. So first, the rationale for this presentation, when I started thinking of it, I've been a coordinator, in the introduction, I've been a coordinator for about 15 years or something. And when you start working sometimes training teachers, sometimes you don't have enough time to be in the classroom. And I noticed in the past 8 years, I hadn't had the chance to teach young learners, to teach preteens, and I felt I needed to go back to the classroom. So the projects some of the projects I'm going to show today, I did last year with 2 groups I had, groups of 10 to 12-year-olds, and so preteens, basically. So here, just so you know, at Cultura, students, they can join us at the age of 3, so they have 1-hour lessons per week, 1 hour of classes per week. And when they get to the age of 7, they begin the kids course, and then they start having 2 hours, and then at the age of 9, 3 hours per week, okay? The students who are between 3 and 7, we don't use course books. Basically, we tell stories. It's very based on storytelling and activities based on the stories. And some of them I'm going to show later on. I'm also involved in our bilingual program. So I have the chance to be in contact with schools in the area. So we have 5 schools, which are our partners. And students begin at the age of 2. So it's kindergarten and preschool. So some of the projects I'm going to show are for these students between 2 and 9 years old. Okay, so I hope you can be inspired to try out something or to adapt to your own context. I hope this is useful. Here are some questions, maybe if you wish to talk about these questions in the chat. So what do you like about teaching young learners? What are the benefits of using projects? What are the possible difficulties you think? And I'm sure lots of you have done project work. So what sort of projects have worked well in your classes? Okay, so you might wish to share your opinions and your ideas as well with us. So we are going to be talking about young learners. So from 2 to 12. So this is what we are considering here, okay? Children from 2 to 12 years of age. Some authors, and I have included some bibliography at the end of this presentation, which is going to be shared with you, they suggest that it's hard to say, oh, this project can be used with 7-year-olds, because it's not only the age which is going to show how mature, indicate how mature learners are. So it's very important that the teacher who knows the students can select which projects might work and which projects might not be so appropriate to the target audience. Yeah. And mentioning observation, I have this quote here, which is by the Froebel Fund, which suggests Froebel learned much from observation, from observing children when playing alone, with others, with their parents, with other children. So he used his observations as a way of coming to understand children's development and learning. So I'm going to start by suggesting that I always, when I begin a new year, I always like to observe the students to see what their interests are. When they are very, very young, like 3, 5-year-olds, sometimes it's hard because they don't communicate so much, but it's by observing them, you can see what can work and what might not be a good idea, okay? There's also a lot of literature which can be consulted. We have Erikson, we have Montessori, Froebel, Vygotsky, Piaget. So it's always a good idea to be in contact with these authors, scholars, so that we can choose the best activities for our learners. Okay? And then projects. what are the benefits of using projects? I'm using the concept of projects here very loosely. The activities I'm going to show, they try to be student-centered, collaborative. We make an effort to integrate skills, and the projects and activities are integrated into the syllabus. So if we use a course book, this can give us ideas on what to focus on with our learners. And when we think of project, there is usually an end product, something that they will present by the end of the lesson, or by the end of the project. And so there is also a sense of achievement. And you're going to notice that many of the projects I'm going to show here are very short ones. One lesson or a couple of lessons, okay? They're not necessarily month-long projects, okay? So far, so good. All right. Now I also brought this quote here by Diane Phillips, in her book, Teaching Young Learners. She mentioned something which I found very nice. Children's education and learning should not be confined to the limits of their classroom, textbooks, and teacher. So she mentions that kids need to learn how to learn. And we should go beyond the classroom. So I feel that sometimes we teachers, we do incredible things with our kids, with our children, with our learners. We carry out beautiful activities and projects, activities which are very motivating, engaging, but they are in the classroom. So here's a suggestion, yes? Try to share what you do with other people at the school, share with other teachers, with the parents. Parents love seeing the projects and the activities the children carried out. So as often as possible, try to show what they're doing. One way of sharing is by creating portfolios. I'm sure some of you already do that. I got this from a website called Pre-Kinders. So this is a way of sharing what students do in class. So as you can see here, this teacher is very organized. She has one file per student with their names, and then you can collect the activities they've been doing for a month, for a couple of months, and every now and then you can send the portfolios home so that parents and children can have a look at their work. So I also feel here, it's more likely that the students are going to produce, they're going to use the target language. I don't know if it's true in your context, but here, parents tend to be very anxious about to see results, let's say, yeah? So they want the children, their children to speak, to say things in English, and sometimes they can be even a bit, let's say, have unrealistic expectations, yes? Sometimes what happens here, parents come to a child and say, oh, how do you say this in English? How do you say that? Tell me all the colors you know. And that might not be the best way of getting a child to use English, yeah? The portfolios, on the other hand, if before you send the portfolios home, if you sit down with the children on the floor, you browse through their portfolios. Oh, remember when we had a biography? Remember when you had to talk about how old you are? Remember when you drew your friends? So this is more likely, they are more likely to use the target language when they get home. So here's a good suggestion for sharing what happens in class with parents and other people, okay? Obviously, there are constraints. There are some difficulties in when we use projects. One of them is time consuming. As teachers, I feel very often we are pressed for time. We have a lot to cover. We have a course book. And I feel it's a pity if we don't have time to expand, if to plan different things, activities which are going to be more memorable. So you're going to notice that many times the activities I proposed here are related to what they're learning, are related to the course book, but they tend to be a bit more engaging and motivating. As teachers, we have to plan our lessons, and if you are planning a project, it takes some preparation, and as teachers, sometimes you might not have the time for that. For example, if you want a project in which students need to collect materials, let's suppose milk cartons, toilet paper tubes, recyclable materials for them to create something, maybe create a monster or something, this needs to be done well in advance. So preparation and planning is key. For example, I'm going to have a project with learners this month, and they need to collect photos of their family members and friends. So we need to tell them well in advance and keep reminding them so that they actually bring the materials needed for the project. Yeah. Another issue I include here is giving up control. When we get learners, especially young learners, to carry out a project, to create something, we need to be ready to give up control. As you can see in the photo here, these students, they are making a collage. Yeah, they are creating a collage about their favorites. It's very likely that when they are doing this kind of project, this kind of collaboration, they are going to use L1, for example, because they want to make comments, because they don't have the language needed, or just because they are excited and they want to make comments. And I feel this is okay, provided that they are completing the task proposed. So lack of language is one issue, and the use of L1. But these things, they can be worked on if you predict the kind of language they might need. Yeah, so if they are making a collage like this one, you might think, well, what kind of language? They need to know the materials, the school supplies, so you can predict the kind of language they need. And be ready to give up control, because we won't be 100% in control of all the time, okay? So one of the things that I find useful whenever I want to carry out a project is to begin at the end. So what is the final thing here? It's a collage. So what do I expect them to produce by the end of the project? And then I can think of the language they need, the language they will be using, and useful language for interaction. Here is an example. It's extremely important to know what your aims are. So why are you doing this project? Here, I carried out this project last month. It was about their favorites. Yeah, so a collage about their favorites. So something I usually do, I do the project myself as well. This is a model for them. So as they had to put together a project, put together a collage, like a poster, and write about their favorites, I did it myself. So I did the project, I wrote about my favorite footballer, my favorite singer, and this is the kind of language I expected them to use. So very simple language. There is here, I love football, it's fantastic. My favorite footballer is Paye, he's French. Yeah, so you can be a model for the final project. It's going to, for them, it's going to be easier because they know where they need to get. They know what the final product should look like, okay? As I said, this is from, all the references are here. This is from a course book we are using this year, and it's very based on projects. So as you can see, they suggest a group collage of your favorite people and things. And here, there are many steps. So this is a good suggestion. If you have a project, try to break it into steps. The first one, they choose the topics, then they describe the people, then they make a list of things. So step by step, this makes it more manageable, okay? And then at the end of the unit, they produce their own projects. So this is what they came up with at the end of the first unit. As you can see, they saw my model and then they started producing their own. Here there is some language for you to have a look. They talked about their favorite football player, Cristiano Ronaldo, their favorite singer, Bruno Mars, and etc. Okay? Fair enough. So this was an introduction, but now it's time for us to have a look at the projects themselves. So the first one I'm going to share was related to International Women's Day. So I carried out this project last year in March for International Women's Day. So it was a week before the day, yeah. And the students were 10 to 12-year-olds. As I said, it's very important to have a clear idea of where you're getting, what you would like to do. And so I always try to connect to something they are learning. Here, for example, to write a profile of women who work at the school using the present simple, third person singular. So this is what they were learning. This is what the target language was. And I used it also for the project in which I wanted them to interview someone and take notes. So they were going to interview women at the school, and then they would write a profile of this person. Okay, so look at the aims. I also wanted them to use polite expressions, to use polite language, because they were going out of the classroom and they were going to ask questions. I wanted them to get there and say, excuse me, can I ask you some questions? So using some polite expressions and interact with people outside the classroom. Okay, so the steps. First, I selected who was going to be interviewed. Yeah, because it was International Women's Day. I wanted them to interview women who work at the school from different departments. So I talked to these people beforehand, and we agreed on the best time for students to interview them. So we had a teacher, we had a director, we had a janitor, we had people from different departments at the school, and the students interviewed them in pairs. So first, after I arranged with the women, we focused on the questions that they were going to ask. They asked questions such as, where do you live? What do you do? What time do you start work? What time do you finish work? What do you like about working here? So we focused on the questions. We checked if they had any issues, if they had any difficulties, if they could understand the questions. We drilled, we repeated some questions and made sure they understood everything. We worked on some pronunciation. They practiced with each other. And then I felt, yes, now you're ready to go. So this is what I meant about being able to give up control, because the moment they left to interview the people, I could not monitor them all the time, because each pair of students, they were in a different place at the school. So they interviewed them, they took notes, and then when we were back in class, I provided them with this model, this template that I created, like meet, and then the person they interviewed. On the right, we included a photograph, and the space in the bottom was for them to write the profile. So they actually had to get the questionnaires and make it into a text. And this is one of the final products. As you can see, these two boys, they interviewed one of our directors, and then they transformed that into a profile, a text about her. Katia lives in Rio. She's a teacher, she starts work, and then you can see here the use of the third person singular, which was what they had been studying in the previous lessons. All right? The second and the third projects and activities I'm going to show also relate to the target language, to the course book they were using. So this one is a book called English Plus. And these students, the focus of the unit was school, at school. School day, they can talk about school day, their timetables, their favorite subjects, and also about the school itself, how big it is. So if you look at the text, how many classrooms there are at the school, how many students, and a bit about their timetable. So I developed two projects based on this. The first one was rather similar to to this idea of interacting with people outside the classroom. I also got them to interview people at the school, but this time there was kind of a quest, let's say, yes. The main aim was to interview different people at the school to find out some information using there are affirmative and interrogative. So basically, I also had a questionnaire like this one, and we started having a look at so there were 11 questions, like how many classrooms are there at Cultura? How many teachers are there? How many floors, students? How many books are there in the library? Yeah, so as you can see here, some questions are rather difficult, and the people who were interviewed, they weren't necessarily sure of the answers. For example, how many books are there in the library? I don't know. So we had to kind of guess, okay? After they interviewed these people, some employees at the school, we came back to class because the second aim was to share information with the whole class and compare ideas. Because, as I said earlier, the numbers, the results, they differ because each person had a different guess, okay? I also wanted them to use polite expressions, polite language, and to interact with people outside the classroom, okay? So it's a similar project, but with this idea of leaving the classroom, of using the language they have with other people, not only with their peers. So here there are a couple of photos. On the left, we have two students interviewing one of our directors to find out the answers. And the second photos, we came back to the classroom and we shared ideas. So there was also some language here for comparing. Yeah, simple language These projects, these students, they are A1, pre-A1, so they are beginners. So when you offer them, when you provide them with the language they need, so they are going to use this simple language you expect them to. For example, there are 20 classrooms at the school. There are about 100 seats in the auditorium. And then they also have, I have a similar result, or mine is different. So there was some useful language for interaction. So a simple activity, but I think it's more memorable than just asking their peers in class. Okay. The third project related to school, at the end of the unit, students, they had to write a text, a description of their school life. So there was this spidergram proposed by the book. They had to find out number of classrooms, how big the school was, give their opinion about the timetable, their opinion of the timetable, talk about what they like, what time the break was. So this was a writing task, and we did the writing task. But I also, whenever possible, like to also make it into a speaking opportunity. So my initial idea was to produce a video describing their schools, talking about their school life, their routine. For example, I go to this school, I have physical education on Mondays and Wednesdays, so they would describe orally, okay? Some issues here. That was my initial thought, but then I had two groups, as I said. One of the groups, we couldn't really do it because, again, when you're asking students to make videos, you need to have a plan B, because they might not be allowed to by their parents, or they might not be allowed to use a mobile at school. So my original idea didn't really work because I wanted them to maybe take a photo or record themselves with their favorite teacher, this kind of thing. So it's always good to check beforehand. That's why planning is important, because the initial idea wasn't okay, because they couldn't really, some of them didn't even own a mobile. So you have to be ready for that. But then one of the groups, we managed to record the video. I'm not going to really show it here because of time. I'm a bit worried about timing. But actually, it was another opportunity for them to practice. So they did write the text, but they also had the chance to do it orally. And I feel I like videos a lot because, especially like preteens, they when they record a video, they tend to do it more than once. So there is extra practice there, because they will record, they won't be happy about it. They're going to do it again. So it's opportunity for extra practice. So far, so good. Moving on to the fourth, and just check timing. Okay. So the fourth project I brought also relates to making a video, but this one is about home. So they were learning about places at home, home vocabulary. As you can see here, the final project, the final writing, they have to talk about their favorite room, which is here, for example, my bedroom. They have to describe it. They have to talk about the furniture, yeah. And then I felt it was a good opportunity for them to make a video showing and describing their favorite room in their houses, or maybe bringing a photo if they didn't want to record. So again, planning is essential because we need to have a plan B. If a student maybe is a bit shy, doesn't want to record a video, we need to think of, okay, are you able to maybe bring a photo? Or even if the student doesn't want a photo or a video, we can think of an alternative, okay? Here, bear in mind that you also need to check permissions in your context, because depending on what school you work for or the country where you live, asking students to record videos might not be allowed, yeah? So check that before you ask students to take photos or this kind of thing. Here, we do have a contract with parents, and they understand we take photos of their activities in class. We ask them to make a video at home, and this is, they agree that this is a positive thing, yeah? So this is okay in our context. We even have permission to post on social media, but it's important that you check that beforehand, okay? I won't show the video, but here we have one of the students. She recorded the video, she described her classroom. As you can see, the spoken text is simpler, very simple, simpler than the written text. So, but as I said, it's an extra opportunity for practice. She's here using the target vocabulary: bedroom, bed, wardrobe. She's using there is, there are, which is the grammar focus of the unit. So, and something which is nice is that because we don't work on all vocabulary, they also look things up. For example, I'm not sure wardrobe, for example, was part of the lesson, but then they checked and they also expand their vocabulary by doing that. And this kind of video, I also feel that it's a good opportunity for them to do it with their parents. Very often they ask a mom or they ask someone to record them. So it's also a good thing, yes, because then the parents will be with them. All right. So now moving on to the fifth project I brought today. I was so excited about this project. The unit was about places in a town or a city. And by the end, the main aim of the unit was to enable students to talk about places in a town or a city. As you can see, there is a London guide. There is some vocabulary here like park, hotel, there was like monument, shopping center. So by the end of the unit, I wanted them to produce a city guide, a guide here, Duque de Caxias, because we're so close to Rio and they might not be aware that there are so many things here in the city. So this was a good way of raising their awareness to the stuff they have available: libraries, theater, cinemas. So we started with a map. So I distributed maps of the city, and we started eliciting what they could find here: parks, monuments, the mall. So there is a shopping mall, and then they created their own maps, including supermarkets, monuments, sports center, no sports center, but there is a theater, train station. So this was a good opportunity for them to actually use the language, the unit, the target language proposed by the unit. Then in the following lesson, they had to write some captions, some quick descriptions related to the places they they mentioned. So my favorite place in Duque de Caxias is Caxias Shopping Mall. There are some monuments, so they wrote. And then I wanted to bring this project because my initial aim was to, at the end of the unit, to actually create a city map, like a large map, maybe with craft paper or construction paper, really draw the map, take photos of the places. So it was a more complex or more structured project. But at the end of the day, we couldn't get to the final product because we got behind schedule. It happens with all of us. But I still wanted to bring this project here because I feel it's fine. Sometimes you have an original idea, but then you fail to get to the end of the project because maybe students weren't that motivated, or because there was no time or no resources. And this is fine because the process is also important. Even though we couldn't get to the end, as you can see, there was quite a lot here, yes, already. They talked about the map, they talked about the places, they described the places. So I feel it was still successful. So if something doesn't really work the way you originally planned, this is okay. Just make sure you can assess or consider why things didn't work. And then you might wish to try it again with another group in the future, okay? We're now getting to the sixth project. I selected 8 for us today. Now we are moving on to other kinds of projects, not necessarily related to the course book, to the course unit. This one, we still have a library here at the school, and I'm very proud of that because sometimes it's difficult for us to find books in English, and we always encourage our learners to go to the library, even at the age of 3 or 4 or 5, they still cannot read, but we have books with lots of images, and we have the books, the storybooks, the teacher reads in class, so they can borrow these books, and they, even though they can't read, they can still, they know what goes on in the story. So they visit the library on a regular basis. And for this activity, this is what we call book report. They happen twice a term, and they begin when they are about 10, 11. So this project happens with all our preteens and also teenagers, okay? They have to make a presentation about a book they've read. So twice a term, students go to the library, choose a book, and they have to make a presentation about it to their peers. This is part of our assessment, our continuous assessment. Some of the projects I showed before, you might wish to include them as part of their continuous assessment, especially when they are officially or formally assessed, okay? So here they have to make a presentation, and very often it's the first time they're using PowerPoint or a slide. So we help them, they try it out. We provide them with a model. For example, here, how to create a presentation. We have like what they can include in each slide. So here we propose 4 slides. So on the first one, the name of the book, the writer, and the publisher. And then the second, they talk about the characters and their favorite characters. So as you can see, it's very simple language, but this helps them structure their presentation. So they read a book and then they have to think, they have to include these things to talk about. And the third and fourth slide, what the story is about. if they like it or not, and then if they recommend the book. Okay, so this is a good way of encouraging learners to read and also to present to their peers, because then they can say, yes, I recommend the book to teenagers, to kids. All right, so this is what we call a book report. Moving on to the 7th. So as you could see, most of the projects I've shown so far, they are very short. They don't require a lot of preparation. They don't require a lot of planning, and they don't necessarily they don't require a lot of resources. Okay, but the final 2, the 7th and the 8th projects, they are a bit more time consuming. They are a bit more they demand a bit more preparation. This one is what we call Family Day. So the aim is to implement a number of projects, crafts, activities with learners, 2 to 8-year-olds, based on a storybook. This is carried out with one of our partners in our bilingual program. So by the end of the project, parents come to the school, sometimes the whole family. So it's a day for the family to spend the morning or spend the afternoon at the school. It's usually on a Saturday, and the parents can see the projects carried out. They can interact with the school, the students, the activities. So it's a very nice, and I really like this moment. It's a lot of work. Teachers, they work a lot to put this together, but this family-school relationship is essential. And as I mentioned earlier, they can see their children doing stuff, using English, which is remarkable. The results are incredible. This one last year, this was the book we focused on, The Very Hungry Caterpillar. It's a very popular book. So this one we did with 2 to 8-year-olds. So it's from kindergarten, from preschool up until mid-primary, the first years of primary. So we're talking about 2 to 9-year-olds. So we have the story. It's rich in ideas. And what I like about this kind of work is that teachers, they can tell the same story to a different different groups of students, but the projects are going to be adapted to depending on their age. For example, we had different activities. Here is primary, for example. Students talk about food they like, food they don't like, and they build a chart like this. I like, I don't like, and then there are the photos. I like ice cream, I don't like cake, etc. With younger learners, like preschool, we can have crafts, for example. Here we have crafts with very young learners, like 3, 4-year-olds, using egg cartons to create a caterpillar. Here we have the butterfly cycle. So it's a project relating the English language, but then also science, and they can talk about the different cycles of a caterpillar. We have some, here another activity talking about favorite food, but a bit more complex, because now these students, they are already able to decide what is healthy and what is unhealthy. So they find the pictures, and then they build this chart, and they also mention what their favorite food is. art with the young ones, our little caterpillars. So here they're making art, coloring, yes, using their fingers, different types of techniques. So as you can see from one story, lots of ideas. And then on the day of the event, they come to school with their parents and they spend the whole morning interacting in English, interacting with the teacher, with their friends. For this one, I have a video. I think we have time for that, right? Okay, almost there. I'll just show you this quick video. It's a 2-minute video.
Hello, guys.
Sorry, Alex, we can't actually see the video at the moment.
Hello, how are you feeling today? Happy!
Sorry, Alex, I think we've got the wrong screen is being shared there. We can hear it, but we can't see it yet.
Oh, sorry. Can you see now?
We can, yes, perfect. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Hello, guys.
Hello, how are you feeling today? Happy!
Sorry. I know we pressed for time, but I have only one final project. Which is all right. Very quickly, as you can see, lots of ideas from one book and one storybook. And if you look at some of the sources I've included, like Diane Phillips, she suggests this spidergram. We have the topic, and then many things you can do in terms of grammar, listening, reading, and etc. I also included this book by the British Council, which is free to download. I use it a lot because, as you can see, there are many stories and lots of ideas. So it's the Tell It Again, the storytelling handbook for primary English language teachers. So I highly recommend downloading. And something else which I use very often is Pinterest. I don't know if you're acquainted with it. You can even subscribe. You can include your email, register, and then you get lots of recommendations based on your previous searches. So I highly recommend that as well. And last, the last project I'm going to show relates to drama, because we also have a drama club, and we've been having students perform, develop, rehearse, and perform different plays for different levels. So we have like kids, like 7 to 9-year-olds. They have one group. We have teens from 11, 12 to 15. And I don't need to reinforce how important and how useful it is, how relevant it is to have students perform, they rehearse, they use the language, they work on vocabulary, and obviously parents join us for the presentations, and they get very happy and proud of their achievement, okay? So we have, as I said, different groups. So I'm just going to finish showing a quick 1-minute presentation.
What's wrong? What's wrong? Christmas tomorrow. I'm so excited. I love the Christmas too. Christmas is the best time of the year. What do you go for Christmas? Christmas, Christmas. What do you go for Christmas? Santa Claus Day. I run a robot. I run a teddy bear. I run a doll. Hello everyone. How are you today? We are elves. We are small. We are happy. We are strong. You help yourself. Hello everyone. What's my name? Yes, my name is Santa Claus. I like good boys and good girls. Are you good? No.
Okay, I'm sorry. Simon, I think that's it. I'm going to leave my contact. So here is the school. If you want, we can share the presentation, right, Simon?
Absolutely, yes. Yes,
And
yes.
if you visit our Instagram, here you can find lots of these projects and many more, because obviously I had to select some, but you can find here the drama club, our bilingual program, and here is my my email and my LinkedIn. So
Can you just
I
make
think
that slide a bit bigger for us? If you put it on presentation, then we'll all be able to find you on LinkedIn and various other places. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for so many ideas. There's so many things that happened in such a relatively short space of time. And I really liked how you, and lots of comments have said the same thing, these really nice small ideas that we can all do no matter what setting we're in, right up to those larger, longer term things like the really cute videos that you were just showing at the end. So thank you on behalf of Trinity, and everyone else is saying thank you here as well. There are a couple of questions. I just wanted to point out one or two things that I thought were highlights for me as well, especially that I really liked how you made us think about the importance of the role of the parents as well with young learners, because there's always that sort of unspoken third or fourth or fifth person in the room, right? You've got the teacher and the student, but the parents want to see evidence of learning and what their kids are doing. So all of these projects and ideas, these are physical things that they can take back. I really loved that idea, and it's given me lots to think about for the summer that's coming up pretty soon, and all the teams that we'll have here and younger learners in London. A couple of questions, if I may. So we've had one question in here, and you sort of touched upon this, but I wonder if you could just say it, a little bit more on it. So someone's written here about how we can make learners a bit more disciplined so that they actually finish their projects, because often we don't get to finish them, especially if we set them for homework or it requires homework. Any top tips there?
well, as I did mention something related to control, yes, giving up control. Many of us, we feel uncomfortable about it, but it's going to be a bit more messy, it's going to be a bit more disorganized, and we need to understand that if we reach our main aim, our main goal, it's fine. Yes, as I said, they do use, here we teach monolingual students, and they are A1, pre-A1, so they might use their mother tongue, and I think this is fine. I think the main thing is to get to know the learners, because if you know them, you know what kind of things they enjoy, they are more likely to engage. And in terms of classroom management, something I find it useful for anything, not only projects, is always provide them with some language for interaction. Sometimes we forget that. Sometimes we say, oh, compare in pairs, but then they don't really have the language to do that. So sometimes we need to provide them with posters like, oh, number one, yes, no, simple language.
Definitely. So a nice bit of scaffolding, which then if you're doing more projects in the future, you can kind of reduce that as it goes on. I love that. Thank you. You mentioned a couple of times about filming, and I thought a really nice point there that I never thought about, especially with preteens, that getting them to film something, if you have the permission, can be great because they will record more than once. They'll practice. They're used to doing that on their TikToks and other things, right? Repetition, which is great. But we had a question here about for those that don't feel motivated to record films. Again, you touched upon this, but how would you deal with students that just maybe they have access to film or filming themselves, but they don't want to?
Yeah, I think we don't want it to be a traumatic experience, right? Some students, they are shy. They might not feel, for example, the one we had that they had to make a video about their favorite room. I had one student who did not want to do it, and we need to have a plan B. Oh, okay, so maybe you can give me I don't know, a short text describing your room, and that is fine, right, Simon? We don't want it to be a negative experience, yes, especially preteens, and then when they become teenagers. I've never had serious issues. My students, even when they were 15, 16, they would do the tasks, but we need to be prepared and have a plan B. Yeah.
And I suppose, as being pointed out in the chat box there, we need permission from parents sometimes if recording's happening, and also a sort of guarantee of where this video is going to end up, whether it's going to be used by the school, which is the least likely scenario, or it's going to be on some kind of protected, it could be a Padlet or something like that you're using, which is there for a short period of time. So there's an agreement of what will happen to that video. Is that right?
Yeah, and some of the videos they record and we don't even post. Yeah, but we sometimes send the parent like that video to that parent so that they can see the project. But it's very important to know what the culture is and what the school, what is allowed and what is not. Yeah, so this is very important.
Absolutely. Speaking of culture, that's just reminded me of something else that stood out. I really liked the idea that a good few of your ideas here, even the smaller ones, they really link to culture, and it's the culture of kind of the school culture and then more international culture, because you had the International Women's Day, for example. That's a really nice one of how that relates to the school. And even that really nice one that's kind of, let's look at our local area and do a project about our local area in English, which I guess would require a bit of translanguaging in some ways, because they're learning how to say the things they see every day in English and bringing that into the classroom. So they get to know Duque de Caxias as much as if someone were coming in that didn't know it, and they're kind of giving them a tour around, right?
Yeah. Now that's very, very important. And I've done other stuff, like once I worked for a school, and we had the chance to walk around the area, taking photos of everything they could find in English, because there's quite a lot of English, like shops, names of shops and this kind of thing. So this is very important because you get more connected to the area where you live. Yeah.
Love that. Love that. Maybe one final small question here. I think maybe answered. You put one link in there from the British Council with those young learner ideas. Any other top tips of where we might find materials that have these kind of short plays in that we could use with our very young learners?
Yeah, we use Pinterest very often here, yes, because there are so many ideas, and we don't need to start everything from scratch. Yes, we can adapt, and then we can see what kind of resources we have, or whether that would be appropriate for a 4 or 5-year-old. So Pinterest is one of the sites we use very often. I mentioned that book, and obviously there are some other suggestions and ideas here, like these are some possibilities. Okay, there's Diane Phillips, Young Learners. There is also one on projects. So quite a few ideas here. Yeah, this one has a lot of projects, ideas for projects for young learners.
Excellent. And a few more ideas in the chat there as well. Well, I think on that point, I'll just have to say thank you very much for all of these really inspiring ideas. And it's really wonderful to see what they are, how they've worked, some adaptations. It's really good to see that, how it works in practice. And I think a lot of us can take that away today to our own classrooms and see how we can adapt them there. So thank you very much for all of that. And thank you to everyone who joined us again today. And we look forward to seeing you in a few weeks' time for the next Trinity College London Transformative Teachers webinar. Details of that will be in the same place as usual on the Trinity website. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. And Alex, thank you. Really good stuff.
Thank you for your time.
Bye-bye.